Yerushalmi Pesachim. The article also edition on the top mamish on the top of Mem Aleph Amud Av Hamachametz Es Psula, and that is in the article. That is an article in the Vilna. That is on Daf Lamed Hey Omid Beis, and it is 9 lines to the bottom. Now, by B'kar Mincha, there's a prohibition of fermenting it, making chametz. It says in Vayikra Beis Rav Kol Mincha Shatikul L'Shem Lo says chametz, and Mincha which you bring as a carbon shall become chametz, and it also says in Perek Vav Pasuk Yud Lo Sepech Chametz Chalkam. Although that's, I mean, the pasuk in a slightly innovative way, but the point is that even the part of the mincha which goes to the kohanim, not on the mizbeach, also it's also to make chametz. So what about chametz as a psula? Your chametz a mincha which is already pasul, unfortunately explains, means already became chametz once before, and now you're being chametz it again. So chametz psula istan itan chayv, istan itan potter. There are those who say that it's chayav, and those who say a potter. Since chayav, it's not actually machlekas. The Gemara says chayav is nifsal machmas chimutza, that it was possible originally, it became possible on account of chametz, and now you be mechametz again. So he says mechametz achar mechametz. You made chametz once, you made chametz twice, so then the second time you're chayav again. Manar potter, he says potter shalom sa machmas chimutza. The original psul was not on account of chimutz. The original psul is kind of another issue. And now you made a chametz. That is your potter. Okay. The Gemara goes on to a similar case. Al chametz. You were makter imurim on chametz. Right. In other words, so you own chametz and you're makter the imurim, despite the chametz. Isai chayiv, isai tay potter. Those who say chayiv and those who say potter. Now this is going to go to Korban Eidos Gersa here, switches here the a couple of things. Manda Marchayev Shenamar, this is the first switch. Shenamar Lo Tishchat V'Lo Yalin. Okay, this is evidently the same gears in the Bavli, says the Korban Eidah. He said Manda Marchayev Shenamar Lo Tishchat V'Lo Yalin Chem Bavli. It was a kol sheish mishum bal yalin. And since there's a hekesh, a connection between so one pasuk. So the anything where there's a prohibition of leaving it over you're over on lo tishchat as well. And you're not allowed to leave overnight past their allocated time. Ma'amar potter. He says, Potter it learns it from the word ziv, again, the Korban Eidah, zivchi. My zevach, in other words, zivchi, that means the ma'azvicha miuchedes shu ma'keves kapara, just like the zevach refers to the part of the korban which is an impediment for kapara, which is required. And so too, anything which requires impediment, which is required for kapara, which is not only dam, as the Korban Eidah points out, as we'll see in a moment. Excludes the putting on the murim mizbeach, which is not impediment of kapara, explains Korban Eidah, ikar kapara b'dam. Shemakei dam hu b'nefesh yechaper. The blood is what it was, ikar kapara. So therefore, the isser of lo tishchat al chametz dam zivchi refers specifically to that which makes it a proper kosher korban. Otherwise, it's your potter. Taking the issue further, molak ofel chametz. The mlikas of says korban eidah mechus kippurim. Something you require this for kapara al chametz arbas al achar tamid. The 14th day after Korban Tamid in the afternoon. The Muzla Bikaparas Yudal Char Tamid the Bereish Pirkin. We learned previously, but there's a special exception. Mechus Kaporim allowed to be the Korban after the Korban Tamid on Pesach. So when the Kohen owned chametz at that point, so East Tiny Chayiv, East Tiny Potter. There's those who say Chayiv, Those say potter. Man damar chayiv, the person's opinion holds chayiv. Dam yikom makom. Lo tishchav chametz dam zivchi, no matter what. Man damar, even though it's being done by malika. Right? Man damar potter says zevach. Shchita. Zevach implies saying with the shchita. Yotza, oath that precludes a bird. She'ein of zevach. It's not there's no shchita involved. It's malika, and therefore you're potter. Rabbi Yaakov Zavda Boy Kum Rabbi Yosef. Man Amar Chayav Nicha. The person who is Chayav makes sense. Man Amar Potter My Daima. Who says Potter? Why is he Potter? So the simple meaning of this line is, I understand you're Chayav because it's an oath is avoiding the base of Mikdash, right? But the person says Potter. Why should be Potter? It's a very difficult way to understand. I mean, because the difference is a very difficult question to understand because, well, oath is quite different than Zevach, right? As we just explained. So the Shayat Yisrael and the Mashbiach seems to learn the question is the opposite. They learn the question, Man Marchayev Nicha, I need a pasuk. In other words, the man says you're chayav on oath. I understand. You're pasuk because to tell you you're chayav because Malika is so different, that's the word dam. Right, but my potter, opinion holds potter. My time, it's so different. You don't need the word zivchi, right? It's not. It don't need to have a drasha, right? It's the potter. It's so dissimilar. Then why would you ever think it's chayiv? So again, the two opposite ways. One of the questions of the Gemara here is that okay, I understand. It's obviously that it's chayav, but why should it be? Obviously, the opinion it's chayav makes sense. Why should it poster? Or the opinion it's chayav, that I understand it's a pasuk. But I need a pasuk to teach me that it's poster. Okay, just look back at the Mashbiach and the Shaitar. So they don't say that. But I think that's Mr. Pshat, and I want to say that to tell you that this Gemara is like a Medrash Kliya. Right? Everybody says different Pshatim on it. And the Leiden, there's a few words inserted here, and some people want to build on the additional words, which are on the Leiden. Leiden says, and then it's also a Medrash Kliya. And so we want to say this story about Malika Cholamoyet. So we want to say it's about the other avodas besides Malika. Again, there's like a Medrash Kliya because the lines are cryptic and not understood. But let's go with the pshat which I gave because it works I think very well, best with the teretz, which the teretz is based on Reb Chaim. He doesn't learn the question that way. He learns the question is straight up, like the Korban Eda. He says the question is, I understand that you're logic Chaim, but why would you be potter? Zavach includes Zivchi includes Malika. Okay, that's what we learn the question. But again, we're going to learn the question that it's the opposite question. I understand you need a pasuk for Chayiv. But why need a pasuk for potter? What's the basis of the question? The basis of the question is the next sugya. The next sugya is about we want to learn out the parameters of lo tishal chametz dam zevchim from shchutei chutz. And we know by Malika, the Malika b'chutz is potter. Now the question becomes more clear, because the question is, I understand the opinion which holds Chayiv needs a pasuk, because Malika b'chutz is potter. You have to tell me a special riboy that here Malika of Korban Pesach, Malika of al chametz is Chayiv. Okay, makes sense in your pasuk. But Vanamar potter, when I need a special pasuk of Zivchi, learn out from the fact that Malika b'chutz is potter. Right? So Malika b'chutz is potter, so also Malika on chametz is potter. Right? I need a special pasuk over here of Zivchi to say you're potter. So that Gemara answers, very fascinating answer. Says Gemara, again, this answer is part of the Medrash Kliya. We understand it, everybody gives their own interpretation to it. So it says, Amar Le, so Rabbi Yosef answers, Lemeidim onesh mi onesh. You can learn a case where there's a punishment, when a case is a punishment. In other words, we're in Malika b'chutz chayev, then you can learn from Malika b'chutz the parameters to Malika b'shnim in terms of Malika al chametz. But you ain't made him ownership tour. You can't learn ownership tour. In other words, the fact that you're part of Malika B'chutz could be because Malika outside is Nevela. Could be there are other reasons why you're part of Malika B'chutz, right? So therefore, I can't learn parameters of something from on which I'm putter. So something which and say, oh, and the chiyuv inside also, I'm going to be putter on account of that. Low crime Zakulaila. The main difference is, again, the primary difference I can think of is that Malika Chutz is in the Vela. It's not, so therefore it's Matar and Shchutei Chutz. But it could be the inside Malika is kosher. So there is a din of Malika al Chametz that it's going to be chayiv. So that's a special pasuk of Zivchi to tell us that, no, they're Pater nonetheless. I think it's it's hard. I'm patting myself on the back here, but I think it works out very glad relative to many of the other Mefarshim. And again, it's based on Reb Chaim. The answer is based on Reb Chaim, not the question. The question is in my interpretation of the question, and the answer is based on Reb Chaim that I'm not going to say this precisely, right? But it's the inspiration for it. And so is that a very basic principle. You can learn Onesh from Onesh. Right? You could, again, what's the language? Lamating ownership, when something has ownership, another has ownership on the parameters which from one to the other because of the similarity. But the ownership can't learn the parameters of something where there is ownership explicit, something which is Pater, because the Pater can come from some other reason altogether, and therefore there's no extrapolation from there. Okay, so the Gemara goes on and says, Rabbanan Kesurin, Bayern. Rabbanan Kesurin asks a question. Yochel Makabel Mahalach Al Chametz Yechayiv. Somebody does Kabbalah Saddam and Halacha Saddam, which are part of the dam process, right? Lo Shchar Chametz Dam Zivchi. So Yechayiv, maybe should be Chayiv, right? Because part of the dam. Tam Lo Mezevach. It says no, because we're Zevach. Mazich Michael Shchevla Bachutz, and here's this parameter which we just we introduced previously, and it could be that the previous Gemara's discussion should come after this discussion, because here's where we introduced the idea of Bachutz. So Mazich Michael Shchevla Bachutz, Yotzam Kaba. So you're chayiv on zvicha outside. Yotzam Makabel Chometz, as opposed to the Makabel of the blood and Mahalich of the blood, Al Chometz Sheichel B'chutz. So therefore, your partner also bifnim, right? So therefore, and this is of course learning Onish from Onish, right? Because there is an Onish on Shchutei Chutz, and Onish on. So therefore, we can learn the parameters of Shchutei Chutz. Of from the parameters Shchutei Chutz, because it's Onish, not Onish from Ptur. Okay, it works out pretty well this way. Okay, Gemara goes on to a parallel discussion to the we had previously, beginning of the day. We spoke about the Hector Munar Chometz, and we said the Mandamar says Chayiv because of the Hekesh of Lo Yitzishchan Lo Yolin, and the Mandamar Pasuk says Zivchi, and the Zivchi means whatever is Makshu the Korban. So this evidently is a parallel discussion. We had often the Yerushalmi parallel discussions. So it says in the Gemara it says V'chiper, the carbon Ada and the article change it to Dam. So Chaykevsky leaves it as is. So the it's like the Pnei Moshe. So let's first say Pnei Moshe and then say the carbon Ada afterwards. Tam lo V'chiper gabe haikol chometz lo ksi V'chiper. This pasuk chometz it doesn't say V'chiper el ba'amakai. Going on elsewhere, to see V'chatas Nosi, V'chatas Yochid, says by those chatos is Cholcha Bayaktir V'chulei V'chiper, love, V'chiper love, etc. V'gomer V'dar Shatos Chaim expounds. Einak Tosimur Makeves Kapora. Tosimur is not Makev Kapora. It's not necessary. V'chiper V'chiper says V'chiper. It says Azmikakai. V'ashir Hachikamer. So now this Gemara is saying by us V'chiper the Matzin the Ksiga Baktora. Even though it says chiper elsewhere in terms of aktora, afil hachi afinan zein makev kapara, we say nevertheless it's not better for kapara. Ken hu adin nami hacha gabi chometz yafinim mizevach davar makev kapara dafko b'dafko. So here to by chometz we learn simply things which are makev the kapara are the things which are chayiv on for lo tishchal chometz dam zivchi, and you can put it into the drush we had before also that zivchi means things which are mechaper, make it my zevach, and therefore things which are included in v'chi per, like we learned from elsewhere, they're included in zivchi over here, not things are not makiv the kapara. The korban edus just who change it to tam lomar dam is similar. Just whatever way to learn it out. He's saying whatever is connected to the dam, that's going to make dam zivchi, is essential in order to make it zivchi, because that's what's mechaper, right? And therefore, going on to the next line, it's referring to zvika sadam, which is makiv the kapara. The dam is the zvika sadam. Yotzek, they're supposed to act in which ain't makiv is kapara. They're not impediment for kapara. So therefore, there's no din of lo tishrat hachametz on them. Yaakov was after boy coming Rabbi Yosef. Yaakov was after the answer of Yosef. Ata dain liftor. Instead of holding it that it's learning it for ptur, do the chayiv. Learn it for a chiyuv. And now we're going to change the gears up. Yochel instead of makabel v'mahalech, the korban edom mechamayim. They both changed this and the article as well. I'm not sure. Does the Chaim change it? Yeah, he changed it also. No, he doesn't. No, he does. He does. Okay. Yochel hamaktir imurim. Al chametz potter. You want to say it's potter? Tam lomer is a zevach. No, it says zevach. It's supposed to say zivchi, but it's zevach. Again, going back to shchutei chutz derivation. Just like a zevach and shchutei chutz, I'm chayiv mechutz. I'm chayiv on shchutei shechting korban outside. Afani arba ekter imurim shechayiv alav b'chutz. So let's say ekter imurim are chayiv alav in shchutei chutz. As you chayiv in also on lo shchayiv chametz dam zivchi. Because it's part of, just like the zevach, but shchutei chutz includes hektim murim. Also, zevach here should include hektim murim. Yochel, I say again, change the gears like all the Mepharshim do here. Yochel hamakabel v'mahalech, not hektim murim. Yochel hamakabel v'mahalech al chametz potter, right? So maybe that your potter because as well. Like we said before, we said your potter, right? No, here this also say your chayiv. Tam lomer dam. Again, change the gears of the korban does. It says dam, and that's including the dam. Makab mahalech is included in dam. So again, according to korban it's we change the gears like we just did according to the Moshe Chaim Kevsky. You're going to keep the gears and learn kapara here from kapara elsewhere. But amen. Zvika michayev shemakeves kapara. Just like Zvika is essential that it's Makavis and Kapara. Makabel Mahalach, Shemakam Kapara, include also Makabel Mahalach, which are Makavis and Kapara. And there's two in direct contradiction to what Rabbanan the Kesar said before. So, Amarle, so he said, Dava Shavav Shteim Melamed. Dava Shavav Shteim Ein Melamed. Say, says the Korban Eid, Amarle, Dava Shavav Shteim Melamed, Shani Yochel Kaim Bo Shnei Advarim. I need to have both. Meets two prerequisites. Shem akiv kapara v'chayovin ola b'chutz. Mlam shechayev, right? The bezevach v'dam ikar tarvayu. Says you need to have there are two parameters in which this which we have to meet in order to be chayev and lo sishchal chometz dam zivchi. Has he something which is ma'akiv the kapara and chayev ola b'chutz. If only fulfills one and not the other, so then it's not going to be chayev and lo sishchal chometz dam zivchi. So it says that excludes ekdei murim, even though you're chayav b'chutz, you're not. It's not makir kapara, and excludes makabel mahalach, even though it's necessary in order to accomplish kapara. You have to have the blood in order to accomplish kapara. Nevertheless, since it's not pater b'chutz, so therefore you're going to not be chayav lo tishchach chometz dam zivchi for that either. And that now the Gemara actually explains that inside. It says the davar shem shem melamed davar shem 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 and melamed zevach it says zevach, and of course, going to carbonate, it says dam, right? Ma zvicha miuchedes shema keves is a kapara. Just like zvicha is something which is piece of kapara chayla b'chutz, chayiv on the outside. Yotza makabel v'mahal she'en chayiv b'chutz, as opposed to mahal makabel where there is no chayiv on b'chutz. Yotza k'temurim she'en ma'akos kapara, as opposed to, and again according to carbonate, from the word dam, according to the Moshe word for chiper, Yotzer hekter imurim she'enim akvis kapara, as opposed to hekter imurim, which is not impediment for kapara. Okay, Mara's going to discuss the sugya of how much you're chayiv on for losi shchayr chometz, how much chometz you have to have in order to be chayiv on losi shchayr chometz. Adab and sivchi, and first going to bring down a sugya mesechus beitza. Tamatina, we learned over there, Shamim Sa'ar B'Kazayis, a sheer possession of for by Motzei on Pesach or as Kazayis Chometz Koseves shear of for a Chometz is a Koseves. Actually, I said by Motzei. The more is going to actually talk about that. Okay, so the Yerushalmi Pesachim Chometz Koseves. The shear of sourdough is Kazayis. Shear of Chometz is a Koseves, so the size of a date. But so many Zeves said Kazayis. Basil says they're both Kazayis. So Bezigam Shem Rabbi Yosef Chena said Lo Shem Biuro. That's in terms of biur. How much you have to be a vayra in terms of bayra by Motzei. Aval Achila, but everybody agrees the shear for Achila is Kazayis. Revo B'Shem B'Yochanan said Ben the biur Ben Achila B'Kazayis. Says both for Achila and biur the shear is a Kazayis. So the Karmanei changed the Girsa to Koseves, but it seems that the alternatives say that there is a Shita, the Chayiv Ansor, which is sourdough and much more fermented, and even less than a Kazayis. And that Rabbi Avo says no, that the shear is always a Kazayis, not less than a Kazayis. So let's work for going forward on that basis. Karma money with Chizka, Ramana got up and discussed the matter with Rabbi Chizka. Rabbi Hada Milsa. So the from evidently Rabbi Mona, who we quoting? Evidently Rabbi Chizka quoted the statement of Rabbi Avos. So he said, "From where do you hear this?" Amalei Rabbi Avo. I heard from Rabbi Avo. Amalei said, "Well, I don't understand." Amalei Anam Shem Rabbi Avo. We'd say name Rabbi Avo, and here the Korban Eidah changed the gear, so we'll go with this change. Libi Ura b'Koseves lachila b'Kazayis. That no, it's not for the beer. It's the shear is a Koseves, and for Achil the shear is Kazayis. Right. So which Masorah is correct? Okay, Mike doesn't address which verse is correct. But Gemara immediately asks, "Shachta Chometz." You shach the Korban base on Chometz. Achar miyad mahalech. After which shear to go? To go after the shear of Achar Chilaso, which according to this version we just saw is a Kazayis. Achar Biur, or after the shear Biur, which is a Koseves. Which one is it? So the Gemara doesn't answer. Gemara goes on to something else. Another question about Losi Shchar Chometz Dam Zivchi. Tam Rabbi Yirmiyah Shem Rabbi Zira. We learned Rabbi Yirmiyah Shem Rabbi Zira. Shechat Zaysim Toch Abayis Ein Abayis Mitzdarif. If you have two half Zaysim in a house, the house in Mitzdarif. We had this early in the Masechta. And within the keli the two have kazesim. Okay. Now, so the question is, shachta aleim. You shech the Korban Pesach on this scenario of two chatzoi zeisim. So someone asked a very interesting question. One has to understand the lumnus of this question. He says, the assumption, I guess, is that we're talking about they're in the house. But it could be that even though they're in the house, since a kli kum inside them, so it could be that that's an issue for Lo Shchar Chometz Dam Zivchi, where you're not with the, I guess, the chometz in the house. You're elsewhere. Maybe there's a migo to be machmir. I'm not sure exactly what the lumdus of the question is, but the question is that, again, Shot aleim. You shecht on these two chatzoy seisim. Me'achar shilu toch a bayis ein bayis mitzvah potter, since in the house it's not mitzvah to do them, you're exempt. Or me'achar she'ilu betoch hakli b'kli mitzvah chayiv. Maybe since they could put in the kli and the kli would be mitzvah then you'll be chayiv. So therefore, it's, I guess because we're saying basically is lo sish charochom dam sivchi, the same parameter by Rabbi Motzei. By Motzei is about what's in your what you're possessing in your house when you're next to it. I'm not sure exactly what lumdus is. Anyway, somehow there's some lumdus to say here. There's more of a hamid to say it's mitzarif. Not sure why. I don't know if the article explains it. Let's see. Yeah, he goes with Reb Chaim, which Reb Chaim I found I saw before. I'm not so thrilled about it, but he says because since he mentioned before the shir is the same as achila, so here so it could be that since the two chatzayis would be mitzvah for achila, so therefore you're chayav on them. And that's not really, that's a little bit of chosim in a sefer. And it shouldn't say that since mitzvah for chi, it should say since mitzvah for achila. Okay, but evidently he didn't find anything better, so we don't have anything better either. But that's something which Lamdanim can coach and sink their teeth into. Why it should be different? The Brisker would really love the definition of the parameter for than for by Motzei. And why the Migo would work here to make you chayiv. Okay, well, that's an answer. So shachto al seer. What have you shechted on seer, which we discussed previously. It's not completely chametz yet, but so the Gemara says, what's the parameter question? Me'achad Amar Rav Huna b'shem Rav Muta Achilo Kabo. You're allowed to give seer, which is something which is in the pasuk of chametz. You're allowed to give your dog or your potter. Me'achad Amar Rav, the Rav are looking at chiloso. They said you do get malchus on eating it. So even though it's not chametz gamor, there's still malchus on it. So therefore, is it a parameter for lo shir chametz dam zichi, or it's not a parameter for chametz dam zichi? So it's this in between things, see, or where you can't get enough from it, but you're not allowed to eat it. And according to Rav, you get malchus reading it, even though there's no chorus reading it. What's its status for lo shir chametz dam zichi? And again, the Gemara does not give give an answer. But the lumdus in the two cases is connected. Whatever the lumdus is come up with, there's the lumdus of must be. It's not the Gemara is assuming it's not necessarily must be not say the same parameters as regular chametz, and therefore perhaps there is this a question by the and the same question by seer. So there has to be some lumdus which connects the two cases together. Now, until now, we've been assuming that all these parameters are on the shechet, the coin of shechting. Now, the Gemara asks a question. The Gemara says, "B'shem lakish amar ache l'shechet." I'm not sure. Maybe he's making a statement. Things are the same. State a question. Ache l'shechet lechem minei chabura. Does it have to be, we're talking about the Sheikh who's also a member of the Chabura, and he's a person's chayiv because it's his Sheikh and it's Kohen Pesach, or isn't there not necessarily connected? So going to show him, look, it sounds like a question, could be it's a statement. You know what? Now I'm inclined to say it's a statement. You need both. I take it back. It's got to be both. It's got to be the shaychet has to remember the chabura. Then you chayv l'shir chametz dam zichi. Because if it's just the shaychet, it's just the kohen. It's not his korban. Or the one bnei chabura has it, but he's not the one shechting. But there has to be one. That be both. Yocham he said no, either one. The shaychet alv b'she'enim bnei chabura. The shaychet, the kohen, even though he's not a member of chabura. And the Chabura and man Chabura, I'll be saying shechet. Even though it's not shechting, it's still chayav and lo chametz dam sivchi. So either one. Okay, so again, Rabbi Shimon said it has to be both. It has to be shechet who's man Chabura. And Yochanan says either one, either shechet or ben Chabura. Okay, so now goes on to them because they're Yochanan Rishlakish. Rabbi Yochanan Amar feel nothing over Yerushalayim. Al means even if it's anywhere in Yerushalayim, not necessarily in Azara. It has to be with him in the Azora. That's the definition of al. Now, that seems to be part of the Gemara, and that's machlokas of al. But now the Gemara brings down a different possibility. It's denke daite. And some people change the gears here. Let's just go with the take it straight. They that we flip fligun. There's a issue which they have by shteyam tem shogolios, and it says the kormeim mahosam melacha bahen pisubo. They did melacha on the both of them tovim, and they gave you asra, and they want to give you malchus. So Rabbi Yochanan Mekabel asra safik. Rabbi Yochanan says there's hasra safik shma asra. You may Mekabel asra safik, and even though you don't know which one is the one you're going to be chayav on, nevertheless they master you on both, and you're chayav a malchus. So you're not Mekabel. There is no suffix. There is no asra suffix. So there is no malchus. Based on variables here, the next line, most of the Farshim changed some part of the gear to another part of the gear. So we'll go with a suggestion made by the Yerushalmi Pesachim based on the near, but everybody changes something. So remember we have two variables here. The variables are whether the issue is al, and according to Reish Lakish, al means specifically in the Azara. According to the Rabbi Yochanan means anyone in Yerushalayim. And the other variable about Surah Savik Shema Surah Lo, we love Shema Surah. Shema Surah Savik Shema Surah, maybe Reish Lakish holds La Shema Surah. Okay, so keep that in mind. Hakomadim she'nasun kenegdo. Now here the Yerushalmi Pesachim puts on Bazora shu chayev. Okay, if it's in Azora opposite you, you're chayev because it's al for sure, even according to Reish Lakish, and it's not Asra Safek because it's right there opposite you, according to Reish Lakish. Mana fikbi beineo. These are all words he's putting in. What's the nafkamina? Hayanasa kenegdo. It's opposite him, right? But and going back to the text, B'chalon, you can see it, but Yerushalayim, it's outside the Zohar, it's in Yerushalayim. So, if Manamar Safek, if the question is Asra Safek, so this is Vada, you can see it opposite you in Yerushalayim in the window, so therefore, it's not, if Shlokish's issue was Asra Safek, here there's no Asra Safek, you can see it directly. But Mandamar Bazora, now the Reb Chaim Kanievsky talks out the word Bazora, but the Mashbiach has a cute suggestion. Kedarka B'Kodesh says Bazora. It was really all it said in the original manuscript was Beis Ayin, and it meant Baal, not Bazora. It meant Baal, but the opinion is Baal. It was Baal whether he's next to it or not, and whether in Yerushalayim it counts or doesn't count. If Al means Dafka Nazara, then Yerushalayim. Then this is in Yerushalayim, and since Yerushalayim not Nazara, he's going to be Potter. Now the Gemara goes on to discuss the sheet of Rabbi Yehuda. The Mishnah says Yerchayim lo sishchacham is dam zivchi. Even the Korban Tamid Yerchayim on. Matan Rabbi Yehuda dam zivchi. It says zivchi. So the way the Korban says dam zivchi loshen rabim. Babina nami atomid. Pafta kri mashma zivchi ham yuchodli. Sorry, avakri mashma zivchi ham yuchodli v'hainu tomid. So he says, well, the ksib is Zayin Beis Ches Yud, so it could be read as V'chai, so it's multiple. And even you learn according to the Kri, which is Zivchi, singular, well, they're both Mai Zevach, right? They're both the Mai Zevach, both Kodesh Baruch Hu's Korban, based on the Tomid. So, Matar Yehuda, Dam Zivchi, Dam Pesach, Dam Tomid. Okay, now, the next sheet we had in Mishnah is Rabbi Shimon's Shita. Rabbi Shimon said, Pesach only Chayav on Korban Pesach, but in Chomoy, Chayav on all Korbanos. So my time of the my time Rabbi Shimon because v'echad omer lo sishchat chametz dam zivchi. One part says lo sishchat chametz dam zivchi because v'echad omer lo sishbach chametz dam zivchi. So what's the difference between the psukim? Echad haPesach rabasar. The first part is about the Pesach on the 14th, and then you only have for Pesach. Echad shar kozvachim b'chol shemoy, and the rest is talking about the other pasuk is talking about other korbanos on Chol Hamoed. Yechayev on the other korbanos is Yechayev specifically on the other korbanos. Obviously, a Pesach Shlo is as possible. So Yechayev on the other korbanos on Chol Hamoed. Okay, so The Gemara is going to get into this, but we're already on Mem Beis Amud Aleph, and this is one of the hardest blocks we've ever had in Pesach in Yerushalmi. So I think we'll stop it for today and come back to it tomorrow.